Welcome, everybody, to a Seahawkers podcast special. It's a mailbag episode. So if you're a member of the flock, if you went to getintheflock.com and you're part of our Discord and you're in there, we asked you, hey, what do you want to ask us? What do you want to ask the Seahawkers podcast, fellas? That's what we're going to do today. I'm joined by a couple of magnificent people. Brandon maybe stopping in. We'll see if he pops in. But up on the left-hand side for me on YouTube there, we got Adam. Adam, how is things? How are things? As our season ends, the snow is flying, and we're watching other people play football. Ugh.
Well, I wish the snow was flying. We have very little snow, and I'm starting to get nervous. I know I said it was like negative 36 degrees a week ago. It's almost 50 now. So, climate schmeiman, I guess. But as far as the playoffs, man, been exciting, been fun to watch, even without the team in there. Only was frustrated with one game, and we all know which one that is. And I'm excited to be here with you guys because we got the Protector here with us too. Phil Leidick, host of our most unique recap show in the entire Seahawks multiverse called What If. And I know it's been a minute since the end of the season. Brandon and I have got to talk a lot about some of the things. It's nice to have you guys and kind of get into that. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys got.
Yeah, 100%. Mr. Phil, great to see you. And Adam was talking about What If, of course, the preview show that we love. And just because the season's over, it does not mean the Seahawks content stops, especially this season. Obviously, Pete Carroll going upstairs, as they're calling it, right? Yeah, he was let go. Let's call it like it is. And
Pete
Phil,
Carroll to the farm upstate.
Yeah, they did. They said it.
What it sounds like.
Is that the train station? Is that the train station in Montana, Adam? They
yes.
take you to the train station. Yeah,
it might be. That's it. He's on it. He's on a rail car, going over the horizon at this point. We, of course, will miss Pete. But Phil, how about the playoffs for you so far? What are you digging? What's eating you? I know there's good football, but is there a piece of you being like, we should still be playing football?
Yeah, well, you said what if, and that means when I get to do a what if show, we're looking forward to a Seahawks game. So I miss that. I do miss getting to be on here for that show, and so I'm excited I get to be on for a YouTube broadcast. I'm looking forward to this, but I wish I was looking forward to a Seahawks in the NFC Championship game or any of the playoffs to have enjoyed that. Would have been more fun, but this past weekend was better football, better competition. The first 6 games we had one score game, I think, in the first weekend. So that was kind of like, there's some good football to watch on one side, but this week was fun in that you could see several teams look pretty good. I think one team looks decidedly better than all the rest, and so I am expecting the Ravens to be Super Bowl champs this year. But anything can happen in the NFL. There's it's a odd-shaped football, right? So who knows what'll happen.
Yeah, for me, some of the playoffs are coming down to look what happens when you could run the ball effectively. And yeah, you better have a good kicker. Yeah, when it gets to 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 20 degrees, you better have a good kicker. And unfortunately, some of these teams went down in flames. Packers couldn't push it to 7. Yeah. That would have changed the game right there. You don't know if the Niners get that drive and score because there's a kickoff involved. Lots of different things happen. So different game. And of course, the Bills, the poor Bills. I got some great Bills fans in my life. And just yesterday, as we're recording this, wide rights, the ghost of Norwood comes back to Orchard Park, and wide right it sails, and Mahomes and Kelsey and Swift and the whole tribe, they're celebrating shirtless as they march onto another AFC championship. So
Taylor Swift celebrating shirtless.
Yeah, people didn't see that one. It was later. Oh, this is Buffalo. Okay.
I was gonna say, I don't know if it's that kind of show, man.
You know what they say.
The brother-in-law got in the way and protected her. I think it was.
Yes, he's big enough to eclipse her frame for sure. As they say, what happens in Buffalo sometimes stays in Buffalo. So it was a good game. I was really pulling for the Bills for several reasons. Number one, I think that they are a team that could hang with the 49ers. Hey, Kansas City's heating up at the right time, so maybe they can too, and their defense is pretty darn good. But Adam, kicking, defense, running the football, what does that smell like to you? What's that combination?
It smells like when you do all that together, it smells like W's. And they're really tasty. And if I was Jameis Winston, I'd make my fingers into a W and try to eat it right now. But yeah, you see a lot of the same themes that we talk about on the show a lot. Things that we're hoping that the Seahawks can. There it is, Phil. Yeah, exactly. See the Seahawks try to adopt and get better at. The teams that are more proficient on the ground, they seem to be doing a lot better. Even with the Ravens, you watch them early on, they were struggling. They get the quarterback involved in the run game. The Bills, every time that they felt like they needed that play, they would turn to Josh Allen's legs, and that would really help. So it's also a matter of the mobile quarterbacks seem to be making their mark. Some of the quarterbacks that are smaller in stature, maybe smaller hands, maybe drafted, I don't know, at the end of the draft, haven't looked nearly as good, or maybe, I don't know, flat out terrible. So that's something that's interesting to watch going forward. I'm a little concerned about the Lions just because they struggled a bit against that Tampa defense for a good portion of that game. I know they finally broke it open, but held to 10 points going into the third quarter. You're like, holy smokes, what's going on here? It's going to be an interesting finish. As long as it's not Ravens Niners in the Super Bowl, I'm going to be happy. We'll see how it goes. Phil, anything that you don't want to see going forward here?
Well, I'm fine with Ravens Niners because then the Niners can lose again because we have one team that can stop the run out there, and that's the Ravens. And that's because it's one thing to talk about running the ball. It's another thing to make it where the other team can't run the ball. And there's really only one that I have confidence in. I'm not going to be feeling good about things if the Chiefs go up against the Chiefs go up against the Niners. I'll cheer for the Chiefs. That's fine. I feel like the Ravens have the recipe to shut down everything Shanahan wants to do, and they got plenty of offense to win. I want the Lions, and then it'll be easy. Then it doesn't matter if the Lions win because that'd be cool. Then I can just enjoy the Super Bowl. But I'm going to be a little more stressed out if it's the Chiefs facing them because they just have too many weaknesses, I feel like, right now.
Well, one thing I want to say about the Chiefs, though, we were talking about running the ball. I felt like in the Green Bay game and Green Bay and LaFleur and then the Bills and McDermott, they got away from what was working earlier. However, the one caveat I would put on there is the Chiefs did a really good job of bottling up James Cook in the second half. Second half, Cook went away. The Spagnuolo and team.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's
Spags, right. They're running a pretty darn good defense in Kansas City. So they definitely adjusted. And then really, I don't think Allen used his feet maybe quite enough, or heck, if Stephon Diggs could just catch a pass. I mean, everybody's on the kicker's butt. Look, Stephon Diggs is the alpha dog. They're getting paid the big bucks, and not just the bomb downfield. He's got to have a better game. He did not play very well, but
the wrong kind of goat.
Yeah, exactly. The old school goat before they came up with the acronym, right? And I think that I do think LaFleur, man, the third quarter was like, where's Aaron Jones? Like what happened? They did get back to it, but it was a little bit like, wait a second, like where is Aaron Jones for about, I don't know, a good 17 minutes of the game after that first half? That dude's not getting touches. Adam, that kind of blew my mind a bit.
First year quarterback on the road in the weather and going up against the number one seed. You've got to lead. You're basically dominating this game, especially when they were really locked into running the football. Yeah, that was perplexing. I do find it interesting that both you and Phil feel a little nervous about the Chiefs against the Niners. I'm just fine if it's the Chiefs against the Niners, just as much as I am with the Ravens against the Niners. Fairly equal defenses. Spags is very aggressive. Mike McDaniel, very aggressive as a DC. They really do come after the quarterback. You have to get after Brock Purdy. You fluster him just a little bit, and he's going to throw a couple Purdy 30s. And so I'm good with that. Now, offensively, Pacheco and company, they are running the heck out of the football for Chiefs standards, really. Yeah. I'm super impressed. And then if you want to give me Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl to vanquish the 49ers, I'm taking Patrick freaking Mahomes every day of the week and twice on Sunday. That's not even close to I don't know, an even match to me. Like,
did you watch him play the Niners? Did you watch Lamar play the Niners last time?
Yeah. When was that?
Was it like a month and a half ago?
Yeah,
Something
exactly.
Like
We're talking
It
about
was-
the playoffs right now. And
Yeah.
look, one of the things that was fun about Chiefs Bills to me, that is absolutely the new Brady versus Manning, and it's must-see TV every single week or every single playoff. I enjoy the heck out of it. But if Patrick Mahomes hasn't proven to everybody now that he's the man and also owns the Niners in Super Bowls, like just to refresh everybody's memory, they beat the 49ers last time they were there. Yeah, give me the
that's
Chiefs.
fine.
I feel totally fine with that. Their offensive line is solid. Andy Reid, he's been there. I'm into it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
there's no Tyreek. It's a different team. It's a different. These are different.
There when they won last time.
No, he was. He had the big. Yes, he was. He had the big
they
play
won their
on
last Super Bowl.
I'm saying, yeah, but when they beat the Niners,
we're talking Niners.
He had that huge third down play and kind of broke the game into the Kansas City's favor. Either way, I think we all can agree. Go Lions next week, right? And keep this dead simple. It'll be a lot of fun and good for the Lions, right? They did us some solids. It's clearly a fan base that's super passionate. Yeah. And, people love the coach and all that jazz. And like for me, coaches, which I know we're going to talk about Pete today and our coaching scenario, but coaches ebb and flow, 1 week or season to season. Like look at Sirianni 2 seasons ago to now, went from like, oh my gosh, this guy is the next guy. They lose the Super Bowl. And this year he's almost booted and they're keeping him and retaining him. McCarthy goes 12-5, 12-5, 12-4, 12-5, 12-5, however long they've had 17 weeks. Who cares? 12 win seasons, 3 in a row. Can't advance. They're retaining him. It's just like the coaches, you could be, Dan Campbell at some point is either going to be, he's going to win the whole thing and that's it. Then you're hero status forever in Detroit. That's it. One, and that's it. Or he's going to make a 4th down decision. It will backfire. And it's going to be like, and if things unravel after that, 6-7 years later, when they go, we never got there again. Happens so often in football. Look at Dan Marino back in 1984, trotting off the field, feeling all good about it. Didn't get back there again. Look at our Seahawks. We know what happened. The whole thing unravels over time. Look at the Bills. The Bills haven't gotten to the Super Bowl, right? With this team. And I would say when it unraveled versus the Chiefs, when it was whatever that was, 20 seconds ago, 13 seconds ago, when they lost that game a couple of years back, man, pull that thread all the way through. It's going to be very difficult for this team, this Bills core team, to make it all the way through because it just is difficult when things are that dramatic. We saw it with our Seahawks. When things are that dramatic, you can look back 6-7 years later and be like, yeah, I guess it really all fell apart at that moment, but you don't realize it until many years on. So it'll be interesting to watch. And we got our own coach stuff to talk about. And like we talked about, this is a mailbag. We spent a great 15 minutes chatting about the playoffs. And I love doing that because it's always fun talking with these dudes. But we put some questions out too, or in fact, we just asked for questions from the Discord and y'all delivered. So we're going to get into that. Adam, before we do that, please, how can folks become a member of the flock? And what should they be doing on YouTube to help us out, to help grow the Hawkra?
Well, whether you're on YouTube or any of the podcast platforms that you listen to this show on, give us a little likey, a little subscribey, and a little, maybe a comment or two, little commenty. And we'd love to hear what you guys think. If you disagree, let us know. Most people do disagree with me, and that feels nice. I can handle it. So, yeah, man, get down there in the comments because this offseason, as upset as I was that Pete is gone, personally, for us, having this coaching change and everything, man, it's good for business. It's good for pods. It's good for content. And if you like that sort of thing, be sure to subscribe. We're going to be covering it all the way through.
Perfect. Perfectly said. All right. So Mr. Phil, going to start with you, and Adam will have you answer this one too, because it's open for everybody. This came from PNW Fan, once again in the Discord. So in our search for a new, try that again, because it was a little buzzer went off. I got a dryer. I don't live in a mansion, people. There's a dryer right there. These things happen. All right. PNW Fan says, in our search for a new coach, who's your guys' preference? Would you prefer a coach with head coaching experience, or do you want to take the flyer on the young, the young gun, essentially the OCDC that is impressing, maybe even as the playoffs roll on? So Phil, do you want the head coach? Do you want the upstart OCDC? What's your preference? You don't have to talk about names yet, but how about your guiding preference?
Yeah, I've been flip-flopping back and forth on this a little bit.
Me too.
As far as deciding between experience and young, I kind of think Schneider should and probably will. He likes to take the big he likes to go swing for the fences a little bit. And the fences to me is go for the young guy, give him his shot. If a guy comes in, he says, here's what I can do. I've got this vision for the team. He's going to do something a little different. He's going to take us to the next level. I think if someone can convince John, he's waiting for someone to hook him that way. I'm not sure that we can get Ben Johnson because I think he's kind of already in love with the Commanders. But I think he's hoping for a guy to convince him that he can do it. And if it doesn't work out, yeah, he's got DQ as the we'll be fine. And DQ will have to get the coordinators to do it, kind of someone to oversee the team, be a direction guy, and get guys to actually do the scheme. There's a few guys that can do that, but Schneider wants somebody that can be his first time and take us there. And if Schneider gets a guy like that, I'm going to be stoked because I'm going to believe that guy convinced Schneider he can do it.
And Adam, before I toss it to you, I did hear the same things about Ben Johnson, that the guy that came from the Niners, the new GM of the Commanders, apparently he's tied to the hip with Ben Johnson. And it's almost this, this thing in fate that Ben's going to go over to the Commanders and take that because he's got a great relationship with the new GM of the Commanders.
And tons of cap space and the number 2 pick. He can train he can train his rookie QB, all that stuff. Yeah.
Can do all the things kind of from scratch. And you're in a place of the NFL world where they haven't been good for a long time, and they've got a rabid fan base when they are good. So interesting pot there for sure. So Adam, the question for you though, do you want the head coach? Do you want the upstart OCDC? What's your choice?
Well, I guess just to speak to Ben Johnson real quick here, if he likes to make poor decisions, then I guess it's probably better that he doesn't become our head coach. I don't know why you'd want to go to that organization. I don't care that Dan Snyder's gone. They have been losers for the majority of everybody's adult life at this point. And I just don't understand. You have a ready-built roster here in Seattle, which John Snyder alluded to, and a home run type GM that you could work with, a guy that has proven that he works well with head coaches. And you talk about ravenous fan bases, the commie fan base compared to the 12s, get out of here. Like that's not even a close matchup there. But in terms of experienced coach, rookie coach, ordinarily, I think I would say rookie coach, because that's just kind of what the history points to, at least in the last 5, 6, 7 years, that the new coaches tend to have more success than retreads. But this is a different kind of year. The coaches with experience that are out there aren't like the Chan Galeys or even like a Mike McCarthy, or, you know what I'm saying? Just guys
recycled.
that have cycled through a couple times that you're like, ew, I mean, what has he done like ever? And there's actual good quality coaches out there. So to be honest, this cycle with all of the quality candidates that are out there, I don't have big feelings about it one way or the other. Clinton, I imagine that you have a strong preference here. I feel it in my bones.
Everybody's on the fence.
I have I'm happy that there's a lot of good candidates. I think we'll end up in a good spot. I would go head coach. And the reason being is for what you said, Adam, is you're stepping into a scenario where this is, in my opinion, not a rebuild. We're not even close to a rebuild. There are things to do defensively, which we were just poor. I don't think it was very much a talent thing. I think we were in many ways poorly coached, and that should change. I'm on the head coach wagon. I think there's some really good ones out there, whether that's DQ, whether that's Vrabel. I think there's just some good head coaches that could come in and hire right, get good coordinators in. And that's also a way which you could approach it and go young there, right? That there's a way to go young still, or get fresh, but still get a head coach that has that experience. And again, if it's Washington with their everything's just from scratch, I think, you lean into the fact that go young, get the young gun. Here, I'd rather see us. It's not so much play it safe. I think we get the best outcome with like a Mike Vrabel type. That's just my take. All right, we got Josh. So Josh DeHuman coming in. Adam, I'll start with you this time. He takes it from almost an inverse angle. He says, if it's Ben Johnson or Mike McDonald, so in this case, we're getting one of the young OC or DC in that case, what would you like us to do OC and DC wise. And he's not saying you got to name names because that could get tough, and we'll hear names as they come out. But would you like them to kind of go youth movement throughout the whole thing, or is that the opportunity to then look at getting, let's call it a more steady hand or a more seasoned hand in to pair with what is a rookie head coach?
Well, let's just take an example that happened right in our own division. When Sean McVay was hired as head coach, they brought in Wade Phillips to be the defensive coordinator, a guy who'd been defensive coordinator for a bunch of different teams, head coach of the Bills, head coach of the Cowboys, head coach of the Broncos, a guy with all sorts of experience and well-renowned for being able to get along with players even at more of an advanced age. And I think having that sort of experience, a steadying hand, a sounding board for a young coach who's given it his first go, I think is super important. So I would like to go with it. It doesn't have to be a guy that has necessarily head coaching experience, but maybe has been around the block for, 15, 20 years, something like that in the league at a high level. I think that would be very helpful.
I see. So Pete Carroll, defensive coordinator. I get it. It all comes full circle.
Bill Belichick.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, sometimes say Bill Belichick might be tired of being coach. Look, I like to talk to people about things I know well, and Star Trek, right? So there was that period in Captain Kirk's life where he becomes Admiral Kirk. He hated it. Couldn't stand being an admiral, so much so that he, breaks protocol, and at the end of the movie gets demoted back to captain. He's happy as can be. So maybe there is somebody that just wants to be a blazing DC, like Wade Phillips as a great example, Adam, great pull, who wanted to go do that and was a specialist in that thing, and really a darn good coach, but even a great defensive coordinator and known for that, renowned for that. We have another one from Josh to whom, and Phil, we'll start with you on this one. He's saying, what defensive scheme would you like us to employ? Now, not saying we got to get too deep into the X's and O's, but I think what Josh is getting at is 2 years ago, which Sean Desai, who just flamed out.
4-3, 3-4, blitz happy, right?
Exactly. What are we looking to do there? And maybe you could spin it with the type of talent that we have and maybe some of the gaps you're seeing. So what would you want to do with our defense rolling forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get Leo back. I'd like to get younger and less expensive at safety, unless there's a Cam guy out there, which he's like a unicorn, 1 in a million. Somebody that can actually help come up and make sure when we decide you're not running against us, you're not running against us. So whatever that takes, if it's 3-4, generally 4-3 is better at it. So Leo's kind of either way, but we really got to have a guy that can identify how to shut down the run on the typical running downs, get some big beef in there. I'd like my linebackers in the middle of the field to be kind of versatile so we can take out the short passing game, and that's not free. But if they can't stop the run, I'm not interested. Just because they can shut down a tight end over the middle or a receiver on a quick cross, I'm not interested in a linebacker that can't shut down the run. So we need to be able to, when it's decided this team's not going to run, we need to be able to do it, even if it means giving up a few things here and there. And so 3-4, 4-3, I'm not so concerned. We got to fix that side of the ball. It's got to be, what's the word? Priority one, whoever's coming in as we get a DC. He says, I know how to do it. Here's what we're going to do.
I love it. And much faster at linebacker is really important. Adam, I'm going to toss this to you because I bet you're going to nail it. Watching the Kansas City game, there was a player shining on defense throughout that game that you and I talked about quite a bit this offseason, being like, ooh, that would be a good get for our Seahawks. That dude was all over the field. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, no. Pop quizzes. I hate pop quizzes. This was a Chiefs player?
Yep, Chiefs Bills yesterday.
A defensive player?
Yes. All over the place, fast, wasn't that expensive. We talked about him.
Oh, was it? No, it wasn't Van Noy. He's on the Ravens.
He's on the Ravens.
That's one of those dudes where I was like, how did we not end up with that guy?
Yeah.
Shoot, I can't pull it, dude. Yeah,
okay.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for setting me up for failure, Clinton. I
no
look
worries.
like an idiot. Yeah.
No, it Drew Tranquil. We talked about
Drew. Absolutely, yes.
Dude, I mean, it's just instinctive, fast, knows how to play football, didn't cost an arm and a leg. Dude's everywhere, man. It's like and for me, again, it's like you don't have to spend draft capital on linebackers. You can, but for me, like every year, there's dudes like that out there who are just good, still entering their prime-ish linebackers who could play, who are fast to the ball, instinctive. And, man, that game, Drew Tranquil was standing out to me. And there's another dude I want to mention too. Look, I love Bobby Wagner, first bout Hall of Famer, all that jazz. Here's a dude on the Bucks who came out the same exact year Bobby Wagner did, second round pick in Levante David. That dude plays right now for me, still a much faster pace than Bobby plays. Same exact age, same age. And he's able to cover more ground. He's way, way faster at this point in their career. So again, there's dudes there, but I think
look at the D tackles he has in front of him.
Oh,
that kind of helps
agree.
too.
Oh, absolutely. Listen,
monster men in front of him.
Well, our D tackles, I don't think are. You're right. There's Vea, and they brought in Kalijah Kancey, who's been awesome, and that was pick 19 right before JSN. They took him, right. It's a great draft pick. That dude's been so disruptive. I agree with that, and that play certainly frees up what your linebackers able to go do. That's a really good point. All right, so hey, Adam. Josh also said, how about the offensive side of the ball? So Phil's saying what we'd like to see morph on defense. What would you like to see morph on offense as we roll into 2024?
I'd like to see more under center. I'd like to see more running the football early and often. I would like to see a little bit more use of the tight end over the middle. I would love to see some in-breaking routes on the regular. That would be really cool. I've kind of forgotten what those look like until I started watching these playoffs and some of the other teams attack that portion of the field.
The Lions.
Yeah, I would like
over and over. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to see aggressiveness in terms of play calling and not just going forward on fourth when you ought to. Like, that's one change that I'm looking forward to. Leaving the Pete Carroll era is maybe being a little more aggressive that way.
Yeah.
But also the Seahawks kind of abandoned pushing it down the field this year. And I know a lot of people were, playing a lot of too high, but just, we weren't playing downfield very often. Not that you want to do it all day, every day, but I mean, Gino's got great touch on those balls and we've got burners, man. Like, even if Tyler has lost a half a step, which I don't think he has, I mean, between Tyler and DK, those are two game-breaking receivers that can really push it down the field. Those would be a few of the things. I think one of the more important things would be just focusing again on the interior offensive line and being very physical there.
Yeah.
Well, if Tyler hasn't lost a step, Waldron fired himself. I mean, they never even tried to send Tyler deep at all the whole season. So one of those things is true.
Well,
only
I think
Schneider knows.
I don't know. Like the piece for me is like maybe or it's just that the offensive line degraded and we just did not have the opportunities for deep shots. Now, the other piece of that, I would challenge myself and be like, yeah, well, where did K9's, big explosives go also? Besides K9 playing literal hero ball, because the run blocking was not good, which I just really think that if we got to prioritize, I know it's easy and chalk, but who cares? We got to prioritize the interior parts of our offensive line and assure that that our right tackle, his knee is A-okay and that Abe Lucas can come back. It's somewhere around 90% of himself, but I mean like a steady 90%, like in at all times, because the dude's a Pro Bowl caliber. It's just, to me, is offensive line woes. Like you could look at all the numbers. I did not like Waldron as an offensive coordinator because I think I would always say, I think he was like getting through his plays, but I think he lost feel for the game when to say, this dude's working, go to him again. This dude's working, prove to me you could stop it versus, I got to get through my plays. I just always thought he was in that kind of default mode versus feel mode. With all that, we were still a top 10 offense in like per play against expectation. So, it just, if we shore up the offensive line, I think we probably win 11 or 12 games this year. Like the year that just passed, we'd be playing probably right now.
I tend to think it's been his design, and I know not a lot of people have talked about it last year. I just did not like a lot of his play design on route concepts, nor on running plays. And yes, I want to blame the offensive line a little bit, but you can work with that. There was times where Gino had time. There was times where our running backs had slivers, but most of the time it felt like the defense knew what we were going to do and they were there. Like, wasn't hideous blocks, but it wasn't great blocks. But I think Waldron's play design is not as good as Shoddy's, and that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, no, good. So it's a good point. Adam, what you got?
KJ agrees with you 1,000%, Phil. I mean, he has talked many times on his podcast that throughout the season, he could tell you, he agrees with both of you, actually, Clinton. He could be like, this will be the sequence of plays. And then each play that came up, he's like, they're running this. And he's like, if I can tell you that from, just the screen and I'm out of the game, like I guarantee you everybody else can. And further to your point, Clinton, I think offensive coordinators get really hung up on sequencing and like, well, this play sets up this play, and then this play sets up that play. And if I don't run it in this order, then I'm not doing my job. And I think what they're missing is, just like you're saying, you get a mismatch. They can't seem to stop it. You go to it, you go to it, you go to it. But the sequencing comes in when they do make the adjustment to stop it. Then you've got the next play in the bag that you pull out, and you're like, okay, you've made your adjustment. Here we go. I've already got the next sequence is ready to rock. And when
did we utilize mismatches last year? I mean, we could look down at the field and see where the mismatches were in the blocking, or I'm talking about in the run game or in the passing game. We could identify mismatches and we were not using them. And I don't think that's Geno. I just don't think Waldron's in his ear saying, here's where the mismatch is, run it there. Here's where this is the guy. This is one of your 7 weapons who can overcome these weak defenders on the other side. Make sure we target them multiple times. I'm not blaming Geno for that. That's up for the O coordinator to see.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all agree. I think we're all cool with the report that Waldron's probably off to Chicago. He's not coming back to Seattle anyway. So, hey, have a good career. Exactly. Bye-bye. And hopefully you do well and figure things out for yourself, because whatever, it's no hard feelings, but don't want you here. So that'll be exciting to see as well. And that for me is also just quickly, like, I'd also, if we're head coaching it, I'd lean towards, I want the defensive guy. I think it's the harder thing to go solve, and then go give me a OC who knows how to deploy these tools and is like, yeah, we got to make a few selections here and there on the offensive line, go bring in a veteran guard, et cetera, and away we go. And it's not so much like, oh my gosh, we're top 1. I don't want top. Not that I don't want it. I don't care for the Dolphins. It's just like, wait a second, we could be like late season Texans. We can be the Lions with our offensive line. With our offense, but we got to shore some things up. So I'm excited for that change. Probably almost like the most. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. All right. Speaking of fun, Mr. Phil, going to start with you here. We got Flocktimus Prime, who's of course Keith, the great Keith Kedover. Keith's just an amazing flocker and a really good person. This is fun. He says, would you rather fight 1 Anthony Bradford-sized Tyler Lockett or 12 Tyler Lockett-sized Anthony Bradfords?
Oh, this is easy.
I think so.
Easy.
I would Anthony Bradford size.
Yeah, one Anthony Bradford size.
I don't ever want to fight 12 people.
Tyler Lockett. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to fight 12 people, and I don't want to fight. Give me the Tyler mentality if I'm going to get in a fight, because I feel like I understand him.
Yeah, Tyler would just try to sell us something or read some poetry to us. So Adam, it sounds like we're all in lockstep here. We want 1 Anthony Bradford sized Tyler Lockett. That's the choice for obvious reasons. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Because you know that Tyler, he's going to compete. You might get a couple nice shots in and all that stuff, but he's not going to be eye gouging. He's not going to be, going for the groin. He's not going to be doing anything dirty because he's Tyler Lockett. He's an upstanding human.
And you could buy him off with some smoked chicken and some cake, because obviously if it's an Anthony Bradford sized Tyler Lockett, I mean, this guy's into food.
Yeah, and just also fighting 12 athletes at once. And no bueno. I was jumped once. I was hanging out at a Long Island bar, and before I knew it, there was like 8 or 9 dudes around me. And the only thing I did well was get the heck out of there. Like I blocked. And because like dude was like throwing a haymaker and hit my arm, really, it actually hurt a lot. And then I found I got a chance to look up, and I quickly surveilled. And frankly, I found the dude who was like the most portly, and I ran straight at that dude, screamed, did a juke, and got the heck out of that circle. And that was it. I got back in the bar, told the bouncer what was going on. He's like, all right, come in. And then it's whatever happened. But I don't want 12 people on me ever again. That was frightening. So, all right, Adam, to you on this one. We got Boye Komova in the Discord saying, I'm all in on Vrabel. He says he thinks Vrabel got a raw deal in Tennessee. On that alone, do you agree that Vrabel should have even been fired, or was that a mistake?
Here's the problem with the Mike Vrabel part that none of us can answer because we were never in the room. And it's the fact that there were two GMs that ended up there throughout his tenure that he couldn't get along with. And is that a function of the GMs? Is that a function of Mike Vrabel and the way that he gets along with people? Or is it ownership not having clear guidelines as to how things are going to be run so everybody knows their role and stays their lanes? I don't know. But in terms of results, yes, he got a raw deal. I mean, you look at it and you go, holy smokes, he went to an AFC championship game with Ryan freaking Tannehill and plays a brand of football that is difficult to handle if you're an opponent, and it has been relatively consistent. And then they got rid of some of their best players when they traded AJ Brown. I mean, they might as well have taken a pickaxe and just put it right in his back. And we all saw his reaction too. That's tough. Vrabel's a very interesting hire. I tend to like it. I think on the flagship here that came out, I'm saying he's my number one choice, but I'm not sure how the personality fits with John Schneider and what the story is behind him in management getting along. And I imagine the people in those circles have a better idea of it than any of us do. But I don't know, Phil, what do you think about the Vrabes? I know Clinton's in on him. What do you think?
I don't know if he got a raw deal. I think you bring up some really good diplomatic points on, because we weren't there. But I think he's fairly honest. I think Schneider's going to know with the visit quite clearly. My intrigue with Vrabel is how he can utilize what's been built. I don't know that we'll like where we end up after, maybe down the road, but I think if we're going to say who's got the best shot to get a lot out of the next 3 to 5 years, he might be the guy. Like Pete's been building this culture, very fruitful, like some orange groves doing well. You bring Vrabel in and he just squeezes all the juice out. We might get, plentiful amounts of juice in the first few years with how he approaches things. And if he can bring in guys that can solve the trenches and he can get everybody trying to run through brick walls and terrified doing what they can, we could go right into being difficult in this division, like immediately, I think, with Vrabel's approach to things. So I think it could be a good thing. I could look forward to something like that.
Yeah, I'm in on Vrabel if he's the guy. I like him as a coach in general, and someone who's not on this pod with us, but is part of the Seahawkers pod network is Wilson Kahn. And I think it was a text conversation with all of us, his response to something similar was, the GM traded AJ Brown. You should have just fired that guy into the sun. He's like, this is not on Vrabel. Pump that dude into the burning inferno, because
young AJ Brown. It's not like he was Julio at the end of his career, right? Like, yeah,
it's like, hey, we got this absolute stud wide receiver. Give us the lottery pick so we might be able to get a stud wide receiver, and that just it often doesn't work out in life. And in some ways, it's what we're going through with Coach Carroll right now. And of course, there's gradients of argument onto how much of a stud of a coach was he 14 years on. So it's quite interesting stuff. So, all right, Phil, we got you on this one. We got PNW Hawk again from the Discord. He says, is there any precedent where an active player basically was a player coach? Reggie Dunbar for those who like Slapshot, and Pete Rose was a player coach in MLB. Bill Russell. He's suggesting Bobby Wagner. I looked up the answer for NFL. So I think the question probably pivots to, are there Seahawks players you see on this team that really could transition to coach either right away within a season or two that you think would make great coaches? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think you'd be a player coach in the NFL if that's what you're asking me. I mean, I've been watching for a long time. I don't even think Ditka coached while he was the tight end. I'm not sure, but
yeah. So that part of it was, I saw Tom Landry was the Giants linebacker and and defensive coordinator in the 50s at the same time. And then when Landry was a coach, he made Dan Reeves a coach while he was a running back. So I think Dan Reeves, which is kind of funny, that's like two iconic coaches that did this. But those are the two last player coaches I could see. But then going through the Rolodex of the Seahawks current roster, or let's say just retired or just moved on, do you see anybody that you're like, yeah, that dude would make a really good coach?
Well, there's one guy that I've always wanted, and I don't know how willing he would be or dedicated, but I think if he did it, he knows he'd be all dedicated. And this is the guy I've always wanted. It's Cam Chancellor, and he, to him, he'd be the Tomlin kind of coach, like get all the guys to do their thing, but he could do the direction, the heart, here's the kind of football we're going to do, pounding the, fist over the open hand. That's the guy that I've always wanted to lead the men, because to me, there's never been a leader quite like him that just requires, demands, exerts respect when he walks into the room. And then he can have all the brainiac geniuses draw up the plays. But when they go out to the field, they're following their leader. They're doing what the genius guys say to do as far as plays, but their leader, they all know it's Cam, and he would bring the kind of attitude that I would want for my team.
The piece for me with Cam is that the further and further we get away from the Legion of Boom, the more and more and more important I think we all realize what he was to the LOB and to the whole fabric of the team. I know it was evident when it was happening, and like each passing year, especially when we're not hitting well and we're not tackling well, things like that. It's like, oh my gosh, like how important Cam was. So besides Cam, Adam, is there another recent retiree or even on the roster you're like, yeah, that dude would make a heck of a coach?
Nick Bellore. And the reason I choose Nick Bellore is he seems to have a connection with every single dude on the team. Like, just think about the way that they talk about each other. Like, the teammates talk about Bellore as well. So he could connect with players, I think, extremely well. Secondly, I think in the history of sports, when you take somebody who's been great at whatever sport they've been in, they've typically been terrible coaches. Larry Bird would be an exception.
That's what I thought of. Yeah.
But, many of them just aren't. And I mentioned this on the flagship. Matt Hasselbeck was talking about if he was to choose Walter Jones or Robbie Tobeck to be an offensive line coach or a coach in the NFL, he's like, I choose Tobeck every day, because when you ask him, how do you deal with this? He'll break it down technically. You ask Walter Jones, he's like, go out there and kick his ass. Like, I mean, because he always just could, right?
Yeah. No,
so
right.
Nick Bellore is that type of player, right? A guy who's been able to stay in the league for a very long time with very limited athleticism compared to the rest of the league. Sure. I think those are the types of guys that you would want. So, and the press conferences would be hilarious.
And he's played every side of the ball, so he relates to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'll hop on to a different question that I had. I'll go down the list. I'll go back up. But this is from Salad Fork Spear in the Discord. And the reason I'm bringing up is because my answer was going to be Nick Bellore, and it still is. If you could choose a Seahawk on the roster to defend you, like basically defending for your life, who would it be? I was going to Nick Bellore because I think the dude's probably a maniac. I think his wryness, his wit, he's living on a different plane in some ways, in a really good way. I mean that in a really nice way.
Is this in court or is this in the street?
Oh, no. No, this is someone's trying to kill you. And who are you going to choose to defend you? I just think Bellore has that maniac in him, that maniac switch that some of them probably do. But again, I mean that in a really good way. And I think he's wily. To me, Bellore would be like setting a tiger trap, and the dude would fall into it, and he would peer over him and laugh as he perishes, though he's trying to take us down. So I'd choose Bellore to save my hide if I had to. How about you, Phil? Do you have a Seahawks
DK.
Angel? DK.
Just DK, yeah.
Just sheer strength, size,
speed.
Go ahead, try it. Yeah. The thing with DK is he can't really play baseball at all. Like, he's bad at baseball. Like, he can't pitch or throw or swing a bat. So I have a little bit of a question about that level of athleticism when it comes to like connecting with some of that stuff. So
I don't need him to play baseball. I need him to run across the room and smash the dude that's hammering on me.
Yeah. DK probably can do that. Adam, you got a choice?
Does it have to be a current player?
For the sake, no, because why should it
Brandon Browner, and it's not even close. Brandon Browner all day long in a dark alley. That is the dude. That is the dude. It'd be easy to say Cam, but I'm taking Brandon Browner. And there's not even a close second.
He's ripped from Yellowstone. Like he's gonna destroy them.
That's very funny. All right, we got Will You Disley Respect Me in the Discord. This one's a bit of just a nostalgic look back. He asks, "Hey, Brandon and Adam, we know that you guys, and Brandon's not here, are buds from kindergarten." He's asking, "How the heck did Clinton and Phil get involved?" So I'll give my quick one and two. Actually, no, Phil, why don't you give yours first, and I'll go into mine. Since I'm hosting here, give you the mic. So, how did you end up in this merry band of ours?
Oh, I guess I just always enjoyed listening to Adam and Brandon and then Clinton's show when he started doing 3 in 3 out. And then in the summer, I was kind of jonesing for some Seahawk talk. And I saw Brandon tweeted they were doing where you could come on and visit with Clinton and Brandon. And the questions were okay. And I was like, I think I'd like to make it more fun for them. I felt like Brandon was just trying to make it go. And so I thought I would draw up a few questions to make it. And I just called it the ping games. And I popped on there. I think some of the field goals guys were on there and just tried to, like, at the end of the show, add a little fun and get them to have some questions that I thought they'd be good at answering. That was kind of my goal, was these would be questions these guys would be good at answering. And then I think sometime in the season, Clinton's like, he came up with the idea of having a show, titled it What If, and said, you just ask us questions. Would you like to do that? And I said, I think I can do that. I think I could ask questions. And it's been a blast.
Yeah, that's how it went down. The tool was called Spotify Green Room. They had bought like a live tool, and they were sponsoring in a way to be like, hey, put on a live show and take callers essentially. So we were doing that in the off season. That was kind of cool. And yeah, Phil, you were coming in weekly, and I was like, this guy asks at the very least intriguing. If he's thinking about this, what if we applied that to a preview show? And away we went. And what if was birthed for me? Mine was, I wrote Adam and Brandon an email years ago. This is now like 7 years ago or something like that. And I was like, hey, I'd like to write a recap blog post for the Seahawks, but like you guys could just put it out because they had a website, the stuff went out. And Brandon's response was like, sure, but you want to write a blog post for a podcast? And I wrote, yes. and that was it. I started doing 3 in 3 out in just writing form. And really some of the inspiration back then was like, I always liked reading like Hawk Blogger, like reading Nemhauser's Tail the Tape. And he was really writing more back then. And more people were. And then 3 in 3 out became like, oh, let's try it on video. And then it just blossomed from there and got to know Adam and Brandon and the others well. And the opportunity became just, more opportunity because we were going at it. So I would say if there's a moral, it is action for bias. Just freaking go try. Adam, you've been at it since Jump Street, so maybe your purview would be cool to hear too.
Yeah. Well, when it came to you guys, basically, you guys kind of hooked up with Brandon before I got to know either of you, and through field goals, right? When Brandon was doing stuff for there, and so after playing with a couple things with you guys, he was like, "Hey, man, like I was thinking we could bring these guys in, maybe do something like that. If they seem interested, we just look at what you guys have been doing, and it was a no freaking brainer. You guys have been great from the word jump, and it's done nothing but bring the quality of this entire show so much higher from the level that I usually drag it down to. And it's been really appreciated. And it's been a really cool thing to expand things out, have different voices, have different opinions. Because when Brandon and I started this, we were literally doing it on my kitchen table, in my single wide trailer, in Missoula. And it was just an excuse for us to get together once a week and have a beer and kind of reconnect, because there was a couple of years that we had fallen out of touch while he was out in the Navy and I was still out on the East Coast and I was out here and he had moved back. And it was just an excuse for that. Started to grow. And then we get all this tremendous amount of talent from you guys in Wilson, in now the format that we have now. It's just been really incredible and couldn't have asked for more.
Awesome. Yeah. It's so fun. Like even when we traveled and there's people stopping us, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, in all the good ways, things can be ridiculous. So I always say, golden era of Seahawks content. Like, so lucky that we hit it at the time that all this exists, that we could sit in these different parts of the world. And hey, there's lots of folks who really do enjoy it. And frankly, we're reading questions from the flock because that's what it's all about. The people are awesome inside the flock that have been supporting the show for so many years. I got one up next. This is Hawk Van Dyke, which is of course Bloomy. So if we're talking about all-time flockers, this guy's an all-time flocker. By the way, PSA for Bloomy's sake, his D Bloomy on Twitter, he lost it somehow. He didn't update something. So he's back out there. He had like 3,000 something followers, had to start from scratch. I think he's just at Hawk Van Dyke now, DYKE. So go refollow the dude. He's a great follow on Twitter. Very funny, very opinionated, very funny, and just a rabid Seahawks fan like all of us, but some cool takes. Bloomy has, and Adam, will go back to you first. He says, what's your favorite pre-2000s Seahawks memory? So Adam, you got to maybe dig a little deep and think about this. Pre-2000, you got one that stands out for you.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that. Now, while I'm thinking about that, Phil, it looked like you had something to add to the when we all got together here on the show, and then I'll come back to you with my pre-2000 memory.
Nice.
Not especially. I was actually pointing that it was Adam's turn, but I did one thing. Did I just bang everything? But one thing that I appreciated was just the chance to come on, and then they asked, I was like, well, I've always enjoyed the entertainment that especially Brandon and Adam had given our family for so many years. If I can give back in some way and they think it's going to make the show better, and if Brandon really wants that, then, and it was Clinton's idea, but I was like, if Brandon really wants this, then I'm happy to help out. And it turned out I just love doing it. I look forward to it. It's like a kind of a release from a stressful week to just enjoy talking Seahawks with some really fun guys.
Yeah. Well done. Good stall job, Adam, there, as you had to think a little bit. So he gave you a little bit of time, maybe 35, 40 seconds there. So we're able to pull a pre-2000, pre-2K memory for our Seahawks.
Yeah, there are a ton, but here's the thing. I didn't really become a Seahawks fan until 98. And so I don't have a lot of pre-2000 memories, but I will say I really did enjoy the John Kitna years. Yeah. Like I just enjoyed him as a person and as a player, and just kind of his entire story, and just kind of an underdog type quarterback, tough as nails. Watching him play was a lot of fun, but that's probably about the best I can do for you there, because that's right about when I started tuning in to Seahawks football and really focusing it.
Late 90s. All right, Mr. Phil, how about you? Is there one that sticks out for you? Pre-2K.
It's hard to say. As a young boy, I was a huge Steve Largent fan. I had his stuff all over my room. As one of he and Clyde Drexler from the Blazers were my favorite guys. And I got to meet both of them, but meeting Largent, get him to sign a bunch of my stuff, that was pretty fun. My favorite play, though, was where Dave Craig was getting sacked 7 times by Derek Thomas. And 9 times total. The end of the game, he throws to Paul Scanzi, who I also got to meet with my mom, and he signed some of my stuff. He went to a youth group where I was going, and Paul Scanzi caught this like 30-yard pass to win in Kansas City, where we never, ever, ever lost. And that was a thrilling moment. Plus, when Largent forced the fumble, that was pretty cool with the big hit after the pick. But the Scanzi play, my dad and I just jumped up and hugged. That was pretty fun.
That's 1990. That was November 11th, and Derek Thomas sets the NFL record 7 in that game. And it's the last play of the game. Their clock is 0 by the time Craig unloads it, and it's just a amazing little catch in the end zone there by Scanzi for the win at KC. And it was cold. It was cold November, man. Great one there. The one for me that I peeled out to was in 1992, we went 2-14. And there's a couple of things to remember about me. So in 1992, I'm a 14-year-old kid living in Deer Park, Long Island. My only access to the Seahawks is like NFL primetime, 2 minutes at the end of it when Tom Jackson goes into our highlights because we stunk. So we were never the lead story. In fact, we were like the last story. But this was Monday Night Football. We played the Broncos. We won 16-13 in overtime in 1992 to get us our second win in week 13. And I remember going bananas as a 14-year-old for a team that just went like to 2-10 or something like that. And that's how sick in the head I am, guys.
Yeah. And who was the big linebacker that sacked John Elway in the game?
Oh, I don't know. Who was it?
very, very famous.
Linebacker?
The Boz.
Oh, okay. There you go. There you go. That makes all the sense. Of course, very famous, right? So that was the hint. It wasn't like an all-time great, just very
They
famous.
drafted him in the was it the supplementary draft, the summer draft, and his one big thing was to be able to take out John Elway. Other than that, it was kind of a disappointment. But.
Well, good, because we could never ever, besides that, take out Elway. So that was a great W that I enjoyed immensely. All right, we got Carr, who's just again one of our awesomest flockers. Everybody's great. Carr's super vocal and super involved out there, and she asks, what do you think our record will be next year? And are the expectations as low for the year after we traded Russ? So she's saying, are the wheels coming off essentially? So Adam, I know it's early, but where do you think this team lands next year in whatever you can pick a record if you want to, but you can give a guidance about the team if you think.
There's a Geno and non-Geno record, right, Adam? Don't you think?
There's a whoever the heck is on this roster and not version of this record. Who is the coach and who is not? Yeah. I can't tell you there's anything a lot there, at this point. But because we don't know if the coach is going to be a disaster or good or mid. We don't know. I mean, we have an idea that Schneider likes this roster, but is the new coach going to be in love with some of these players and want to turn some stuff over and move some pieces? I have no idea who the coordinators are going to be at this point. You could tell me 2 wins. You could tell me 12 wins. I'd believe all of it. We've got a long ways to go before I can even begin to make a guess. If you really held my feet to the fire, 8 wins.
8 wins. Okay. That feels it again. We know our opponents. It's already, I'll talk about it and shows to come. Our opponents next year are not easy. We got to go play the NFC North and we have to play the AFC East. Not easy. We play a lot of good quarterbacks next year. It just is what it is. So it's going to be some tough opponents. And one that we thought was not good this year, the Rams, they're good. If anybody needs to go look at something, go look at their draft. Go look at the 2023 Rams draft, and everybody's making fun of Stetson Bennett in the 4th. Look at everything else around that draft and start to salivate because they reloaded this year. Generational type draft the Rams put together, and I think we're going to notice that in about the next year or two to come. It's be interesting. All right, Mr. Phil, can you assemble? Where do you think we are? Let's just put it in the grade. Do you think this team going north, going south, kind of staying even? What do you think for Carr's sake?
Well, Adam's right. It's tough to say, but when I listen to Schneider, I don't think he's just tearing everything to the studs. I just don't. I don't know if he's going to move on from Geno, and to me, that's the giant factor. If Geno plays, we're not going to win less than 7 games. If Geno plays next year, we're not going to win less than 7. If we decide to go rookie all year, yeah, we could have a Manning Aikman early year, which happens, and you win a couple 3 games. I don't think we're going to get a bad coach. I think there's too many good ones, and I think Schneider knows what a good coach looks like. So whether we get the great one that takes us to the Super Bowl in the next 3 years, I don't know, but I don't think we're going to get a bad coach. I don't think it's going to be horrible next year, but if we don't have Geno, it could be a rough sled.
Yeah, I think Geno I really think the coach that comes in is going to be salivating over Geno on what is still a team-friendly deal, even though he'll be peaking at like $32 million against the cap. That's still super friendly for what is, I think, top 10 with higher upside than that QB play, and also why I think we might gravitate towards the dude that's like a Vrabel. That's like, look what I did with Tannehill. Yeah, give me Geno all day long and let's improve a little bit around him. James came in with this, so we'll start with you, Phil. It's a bit of a take on that and just says, what does a successful season look like next year? And then there's the sidecar of what if it's basically not successful? What do we think Schneider's leeway is? How long does he get to potentially fix it? So how can we look at defining success even though it's super early?
Well, I got an easy answer that comes into my mind for Schneider. He's got to fix the trench issue. So as he gets to control the roster, he's got to fix the inside. We need some nasty. When you were talking about somebody to protect me, I'm like, why can't I think of an offensive lineman that is going to go out there and defend me? I just don't feel like we have the nasty unless it's Abe and we can't count on his health. So Schneider has to fix the trenches. His goal needs to be, we are going to be without a doubt have the best trench play in this division. We're going to have the best offensive line. We're going to stop the run. We cannot. So we got to get at least half better at defending the run consistently next year. And he's in charge of both. Who he brings in has to convince him he can do it. And what personnel he gets, he has to fix that. And if he doesn't start solving that, if we're not improving in the trench play, Schneider failed next year. That's the simplest. Now, I'm not going to go in terms of wins or losses. We can't be in the bottom third of DVOA on running and run defense. It can't happen anymore.
So Adam, let's leap from there. Let's say we are. Let's say we do not fix the trenches, and therefore we could estimate we had a fairly unsuccessful season. How long of a rope do you think John Schneider gets if that's what next year looks like?
I would imagine that it's this year and next year for John. If it's not going well, I think that's when his contract is officially up and then an option after that. But yeah, I talked about this a lot on the flagship show, being like, all right, I want a definition of success from the people that really wanted Pete gone, because to me, if it's not 10, 11 wins and at least one playoff win in a real competitive second round situation, did we improve? Like the answer would be no, because you're either exactly the same and or worse. So if this year was underachieving, which I think we all kind of agree to an extent it was, like the coach is going to have to do a lot more than that. I mean, it seems like if Jody was willing to get rid of Pete right now, her targets are set much higher than where they have been the last 2 years, which is fair. I mean, there's things to look at that you go, yeah, this is unacceptable. Play in the trenches, Phil.
But Steeler game, she had to be so embarrassed during that Steeler game. She had to be.
Weren't we all?
Yeah.
I mean, it was highly frustrating. So, if Pete Carroll was not successful with back-to-back 9-win seasons, then success obviously means more than that.
Yeah. You think back to the beginning of the season, what were every single one of us saying? I know you were. I know we were thinking it when we talked about Schneider. I'm not sure you're solving our trench problem. And we're like, I guess we're going to have to trust you. Maybe you know something that we don't know. I hope that you prove otherwise. And it started out kind of like our run defense was okay. We still weren't getting the push in our offensive run game. And it turns out that just like what 90% of the fans were saying our biggest worry was, it was exactly like we were afraid, right, Adam? How long is Jody going to let him keep doing this?
I mean, Clinton, you heard me bang the drum the entire offseason with my frustration on the interior, specifically defensively. I think offensively, the problem really circled around injuries, and especially the Abe Lucas injury.
Yeah, that's
really the right side of the line was in flux the entire year. That's just tough. You need more continuity than that. But Clinton, you know how I felt about the offseason last year regarding the trenches, especially defensively. Where do you feel like John is going to do better this year in the trenches? Do you think he gets the memo, or the next coach helps deliver the memo, or is it going to be more of the same up front?
I think if he's going to be anywhere, and this is actually a version of the Lemon 1990s question, so we'll spin it right here and I'll start it. So I'll ask the question, but I'll also answer it as like, hey, if we can make a move, like a move or a position where we're like, we've got to concentrate there to upgrade that over all else, and let's try to be as specific as possible with a particular place on the field. Let's talk about that. So I think there's enough talent actually across the defensive line, even if you brought back the same defensive line right now that was last year, and get Nwosu healthy. That's a big part of it. And that means Brooks is in, right? All that stuff. I think there's enough there that the right coaching can get a markedly different result than what we got defensively this year. I really do believe that. On the other side of the equation, I don't think there's a magic coach elixir that could do much more with the offensive line that we had this year. So if I'm Snyder, I'm looking at either a right tackle that I could draft that could kick into guard. That's actually probably the thing I'm looking for at spot 16 is like, is there a right tackle? Because that's not left tackle, right? So it's spot 16. Yeah. That's where you could possibly get the best right tackle. And very often in the draft cycles, there's, hey, this guy's a really good college right tackle, but he profiles great as a NFL guard. Give me that dude. Give me that guy at 16 that won't mind kicking inside if Abe is healthy, is ready to rock and roll. And if Abe's not healthy, all right, well then we might have that right tackle that could play out there and just replace Abe if his knee's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. So that's like the one spot I would really focus on. How about you, Phil? What's one area that you're like, all right, it's got to be this obvious? And you could say right tackle also, or right guard, but maybe consider that's off the board.
Well, Damian's a free agent, so and Evan's a free agent, so hopefully Olu is good. I mean, I don't know. Well, I'm a little concerned about the interior of offensive line. I don't know that I agree that our front seven was good enough with personnel last year. Maybe it is. I feel like that's a great place to invest in as far as free agency. We tried with Dre, but that wasn't really the kind of what we needed, I didn't feel like. But I was hopeful. We spent so much money there, but I don't know how we went away. We already struggled on run D, and we went away from Al Woods, who was one of our best ones at it, knowing that Monet wasn't going to come back, and we're going to somehow think that Bobby and Jordan were going to stay clean without guys that could really take up double teams. I mean, who's our guy that takes up double teams on the other side? You look at Tampa, they got Vita Vea starting, then they got Greg Gaines on the bench. I mean, if you want to have a good run defense, you got to have a rotation there. And I just don't think we've done enough to invest. And I'd say free agency and then even like some day 2 picks to get that cycle going.
Yeah. And Adam, looks like you're pointing in a lot of agreement there. So what would you want to add?
Phil, when you said they have Vita Vea, then they've got the backup who's a heck of a football player as well. Clinton, this speaks to what you said when you're like, I think we had the talent to be better there. And like, sure, I mean, they could probably be a little better, but the problem is that there's no depth in the interior. And like you had mentioned, Phil, the Dre signing, kind of a disaster. And I was frustrated with it at the time because he's not a run defender, and we were going to be counting on him for that. So it's kind of a 2-pronged approach. So it depends on how John wants to go about it, but it's a little chicken and the egg. I think it's a little easier to find D tackles than it is to find really good edge setting defenders against the run. So the number one priority would be signing one more dude on the edge who's a premium run defender. I don't give a shit about sacks. Don't care. Like, I don't care if he never gets a sack. We've got dudes for that. I want a dude on the edge to pair with Nwosu and also with Mafe, and hopefully Hall develops a little bit, even though it was a tough year, to help set the edge, because we were getting killed on the edge as much as we were up the middle. Then draft a couple more D tackles and make sure you re-sign Leo. Make sure is Jarrett Reed a 1-year deal too, or do we get him again?
He's already signed. Yep.
Pair those 2 dudes up again and get 2 dudes behind them. They got wore down towards the end of the year, and the defense continued to fall off worse and worse and worse against the run. That would be because offensively we were fine. We weren't great, but we were fine. You can win a lot of football games that year, but defensively it was a dumpster fire. And you got to at least get that side of the ball up to snuff. And now maybe you are talking 10, 11 wins in being competitive with at least the Rams for sakes, just you got to at least be able to be competitive with them.
I think if we get Raheem Morris, he's going to prioritize that. I mean, we need some man muscle in the trenches.
Raheem.
Well, I'm terrified of Raheem Morris. No, thank you. No,
really. That's your terror. Yeah.
So that'll be a good topic for the flagship as that comes out. I bet y'all talked about Raheem as well. That's going to be, I think we just went through the different parts of where we would prioritize like the one thing to go fix. And we all gave really good answers. So that means there's quite a bit to go fix, is what it boils down to, right? It's like, yeah. So, and we know it won't just be a singular move. There's going to be quite a bit of moves. I don't
agree that there's a ton of things to fix. I think there's
but there's like 2 or 3 large things. So we need better O-line. These are big things, though, right? We need better O-line.
The hardest thing to get.
Interior O-line, we need that better. We need better defensive run stopping, period. And we need to get a lot faster at linebacker. To me, I put that right up there. We need to get a lot faster at linebacker. Watching dudes like Nick Benito fly all over the field. And like we talked about Tranquil earlier, these dudes are out there. They could get them 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, or just go shopping and go get a veteran or 2 that could fly around the ball and be fast to the football. We were slow to the football this year, between Jamal playing de facto linebacker and being injured, and Bobby being slower. We were not a fast team. We've got to change that. So plenty of offseason. We got 2 more good, plenty to get through. 2 more questions, 1 for fun. We got Tangled Bag, very simply saying, I'll go to Adam first. Adam, Nintendo or Sega? So when I hear that, I think, well, whatever. You think what you think, but Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, where you landing?
Okay, so are we talking home consoles or are we talking the portables? Because if we're talking home consoles, look, you can talk to me about Sega all day. I don't care. Original Nintendo, it's not even close. There's a zillion fantastic games. It changed the entire genre. If we're talking about the handhelds, the little Sega handheld that was color, I actually got one of those for Christmas.
That was
as
dope.
A kid. It was like one of the most fancy presents I had ever gotten as a kid. It was amazing, and it blew the Game Boy out of the water. Phil, are you gonna say, like, are you gonna throw Atari in there? Like, are you gonna go like AWOL here?
I'm not that much older, Adam. I know I'm like 2 years older than you guys.
I played Atari. Pitfall was one of my favorite games, man. Yeah.
No, I did have it. I did love playing some Atari before the Nintendo came out, but when the Nintendo came out, that changed everything. There's no doubt. That was a life-changing experience, and we can have another discussion from the psychiatry and all. Has that been better or worse for our culture? But as far as fun for a little boy, nothing compares to when the Nintendo came out. My friends had a Sega, so I had one neighborhood friend out of some 40 that had a Sega. So you go over there and play a few games that were kind of cool, kind of unique. That was my first Madden experience, I have to say. Receiver A, B, or C on the Sega, and so I played all night on that. That was pretty fun. But yeah, when you talk about the collection, when you talk about the library of games in just Nintendo, Super Nintendo, you could do that your whole childhood and, grow up an idiot, but you would have had a lot of fun.
Well, it's a great question, a lot of fun. It's a bit tragic that you both got it wrong. It's clearly Sega Genesis because you mentioned EA Sports. It's in the game, and that was Genesis. That was PGA Tour golf. That was Madden football. That was NCAA football. That was NHL hockey. That was only on Genesis for the longest time before it made its way to Super Nintendo. So
what about Tecmo Bowl? Come on, man.
Did they have Super Tecmo Bowl?
Good game.
Oh,
so
no,
anyway,
did they have Metroid? Did they have Contra? Did they have Bionic Commando?
If you ask me
I could go on and on and on. Did they have Double Dragon?
We're talking about our childhood. If you're asking me what's sitting in my house right now, what do both my kids have? They got a Nintendo Switch, and my son's got an Xbox also because, of course, he's 13 years old. All right, fun question from Tangled Bag. We got one more from Car. Let's put on the nostalgia machine here. She says, what are you going to miss the most about Coach Pete Carroll? She goes on to say, for me, it's going to be how excited he gets on the sidelines after every great play. So, Phil, let's start with you on this one. The one thing you're going to miss most about Coach Pete Carroll.
The most? Oh,
miss
boy.
The most. Tough one. You could do something. You could stall and ask Adam a question like he did earlier.
I guess
good tactic.
There's so many things, but I guess at this point, it's just being able to anticipate what he's going to do and know what he really means when he talks, because we got to know him for 14 years. And so when he's saying it, you can see the words behind. And during the game or after, before, just looking forward to the expected Pete responses to things, the familiarity of it all. I'm a 20-year married guy. I love just knowing how the love of my life is going to respond to things. Same with my sports. So I'm going to miss that.
Nice. All right. How about you, Adam? We've got the consistency on the side of knowing what's coming. What are you going to miss from Pete?
Before Phil even answered the question, the first two words that came to my mouth was consistency and clarity. And those are the two things that you could count on from Pete Carroll: the messaging, the language, the positivity, the rules for the team, the circle of toughness of football. Like, there was no questions as to who we were as an organization and as a team, week in, week out. And with that consistency and clarity, you were able to navigate a lot of the great times, and you were also still able to navigate some of the lowest points as well. That's really difficult to do, especially as a head man, and have that clear of a philosophy that pulls you through that stuff. I'm going to miss that more than anything. At the end of the flagship, I kind of talk more about what Pete Carroll has meant to me personally, even though he doesn't know who the heck I am in life. And it's going to be big shoes to fill, man. I kind of don't envy the next dude. Clinton,
I think he knows who you are.
It can't be the same thing, right?
I think he listens, Adam. I think he knows who you are. I've heard of things.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I agree. I like to think he listens too. We've talked about, for me, we talked about the things even last time about what I'll miss about Pete. So I'm actually not going to answer, because I would start to go to the things that I won't miss, and I don't want to go to negative town. I want to stay in the positive side of this, and just recognize, we went through it from the reaction show, just being like legend, icon, thankful we had him. And now, we're a couple of weeks removed from it, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see it's new. And in some ways, new can be fun, and it's scary and different. So all the things about consistency, and now we're in pitfall. All right. We're on that vine. We're about to go over 3 gators, and we don't know. Are we going to land on the other side of the pond? Are we going to land in a gator mouth? Are we going to get lucky and land on top of a gator with that little sliver that you can land right on top of the dude for a bit? We don't know. So that is exciting for the offseason. Offseason's just getting started, and we're getting fired up. I hope people enjoyed the mailbag, because this was a lot of fun. So I think we're going to do more of these mailbags. And Phil, you had a great idea to say, hey, for the next mailbag, how should we actually do it?
Oh, I'd love to do a live show, and then we could not only do mailbag, but then they could tap their little questions on there, and we could answer extemporaneously in real time. This was kind of fun. Just kind of shoot from the hip. You got all these thoughts in your heart, and the questioners know how to bring those things and squeeze them out. Thank you for the questions. Appreciated them.
Absolutely. So would love to hear the comments, and whether that's Discord or out on YouTube. And if we didn't, get to your questions, heck, if it's out on YouTube, start piling up your next questions. Because I think, Adam, this was a fun little get, and I think we might be doing some more mailbags throughout the offseason and doing the live version. What do you think?
I am stunned that we haven't done this with regularity to this point as it is. This is fantastic. Phil, you mentioned like doing things off the top of your head and just the things that you kind of feel in your heart. That's how I do it every week. I know you guys prepare and stuff, but I'm always just winging this nonsense. But I do enjoy the format. I love the idea of doing it live and getting back and forth with the Flockers here, because they have been so incredibly supportive throughout the years, and especially these last couple where the team wasn't maybe hitting as much as we had hoped, but yet the numbers still grow. Their support keeps growing. It just is so encouraging, and just love those guys, man. The little Flockers, they're the best.
They are the best. youtube.com/SeahawkersPod. Make sure you're subscribing there. Wherever you got ears, any of the pod platforms, audio, subscribe there. The like skis, it's Adam would call it. Drop the comments, drop the 5-star reviews. And if you're so inclined, get in the flock.com, become a member of the flock, become a member of the Discord, get involved so you can be part of this next mailbag. And I think, gentlemen, with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.